Something strange is happening to modern life. Everything is getting easier, yet more people than ever feel unmotivated, restless, and quietly dissatisfied. Life is more comfortable than it has ever been in human history. And that comfort might be the very thing slowly draining meaning from our lives. Because the human mind was never designed for a life without resistance. For most of history, survival demanded effort. You had to move. You had to think. You had to struggle. Life constantly pushed back. And in pushing back, it forced people to grow. But today, something has changed. Not suddenly. Slowly. Quietly. Almost invisibly. The resistance that once shaped everyday life has been disappearing. Food arrives with a tap. Information appears instantly. Entertainment never runs out. Almost every inconvenience that once defined human life has been removed. At first glance, this seems like progress. And in many ways, it is. But beneath the surface, something strange has begun to happen. The easier life becomes, the harder it seems for many people to feel truly alive. Not miserable, not desperate, just strangely empty. A quiet dissatisfaction that is difficult to explain. Because on the surface, everything looks fine. You have more convenience than almost anyone who has ever lived. But something deeper feels missing. And the reason might be simpler than we think. Comfort slowly removes something from life that most people never realize they need. At first it feels harmless. But over time, its absence begins to change everything. That missing ingredient is friction. Friction is one of the most important ingredients in a meaningful life. Without friction, there is no resistance. Without resistance, there is no challenge. And without challenge, something inside you begins to fade. At first the change is subtle. You start choosing the easier option more often. The easier task. The easier entertainment. The easier path. None of these decisions seem dangerous. In fact, they feel reasonable. After a long day, comfort whispers something very convincing. You deserve this, and maybe you do. Rest is not the enemy. But comfort has a quiet tendency to grow. What begins as a reward slowly becomes a habit. And habits quietly become lifestyles. Days become easier, but also strangely similar. You wake up, you check your phone, just for a moment, just to see if there's anything new. But a few minutes turn into 10. 10 minutes become half an hour. And suddenly you're scrolling through things you didn't even mean to look at. When you finally put the phone down, something feels slightly off. You can't quite explain it. But the moment you had before feels gone. And the strange thing is that this moment repeats itself many times throughout the day. Small fragments of attention quietly disappearing. Small pieces of life dissolving into distraction. Weeks begin to pass that feel almost identical to the ones before them. Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche believed that struggle plays an essential role in shaping the individual. Resistance, difficulty, and challenge are not simply obstacles in life. They are forces that create strength. When you confront something difficult, you are forced to change. You adapt. You grow. You discover parts of yourself that comfort would never reveal. But when life becomes too easy, those moments disappear. Nothing pushes you. Nothing demands transformation. Life becomes smooth, predictable, and strangely quiet. This quietness is often mistaken for peace. But peace and stagnation are not the same thing. Peace feels alive. Stagnation feels dull. And many people today experience a form of stagnation they struggle to recognize. They feel tired without working hard, restless without understanding why, unmotivated even when they have time and opportunity. This confusion often leads people to believe something is wrong with them. They think they lack discipline, or ambition, or motivation. But sometimes the problem is much simpler. The environment around them has removed the very conditions that once created motivation in the first place. But comfort hides another consequence that very few people notice. It slowly removes the moments where we are forced to meet ourselves. Psychiatrist Carl Jung believed the human mind needs confrontation, not constant struggle. but confrontation with the unknown parts of ourselves. These confrontations shape identity. They force reflection. They deepen our understanding of who we are. But when life becomes too comfortable, these confrontations disappear. We avoid the difficult conversation. We avoid the challenging project. We avoid the unfamiliar experience. And without realizing it, we begin living inside a carefully constructed bubble of convenience. Everything feels manageable, but also strangely small. Comfort slowly shrinks the boundaries of life. It encourages us to remain where things are predictable, where effort is minimal, where risk is low. But meaning rarely lives in those places. Meaning often exists where uncertainty begins, where you attempt something difficult, where you expose yourself to failure, where you step into situations that demand courage and persistence. Those moments are rarely comfortable, but they are often the moments people remember most clearly. Think about the experiences that shaped your life, the moments that changed you. They were probably not the easiest ones. They were the moments that demanded something from you. This is the hidden paradox of comfort. The more we organize our lives around avoiding discomfort, the less meaningful life begins to feel. Because meaning often exists just beyond the edge of ease. In effort, in challenge, in the pursuit of something that requires patience and persistence. Comfort asks almost nothing. And when life asks nothing of you, you slowly stop asking anything of yourself. Ambition fades, curiosity weakens, and the quiet restlessness returns. The goal of life is not endless struggle, but it is also not endless comfort. Somewhere between those two extremes is where life begins to feel meaningful again, where effort leads to growth, where uncertainty leads to discovery, where difficulty becomes the path toward becoming more than you were before. So perhaps the real question is not how to make life easier. Perhaps the better question is this: what meaningful difficulty have you been avoiding? Because sometimes, the thing that feels uncomfortable at the beginning is also the thing that brings your life back to life.